All right, so here's a question for the players out there. When was the first time you produced a song, and how good and or bad was that production? You see, one thing I've noticed a lot with guitar players in the modern world is that your artistry and your playing are kind of attached to one. And pretty much every guitar player I know also calls themselves a producer. And why is that such a badge of honor nowadays? Why does everyone want to be able to say, I produced my own stuff? Now, going back a little bit, I think it started for me with when I was a young guitar player. I've been playing for about 2 years. I knew some basic strumming patterns. I knew my cowboy chords, and I knew the pentatonic enough where I could impress about nobody, but I thought it was about the greatest thing in the world that I could play some very simple pentatonic riffs. And with that being said, I loved artists like Gary Clark Jr. and Johnny Lang, and I wanted to start recording not just covers of them, but my own original ideas that I had written just on the acoustic guitar, even if they weren't that great. So what I did was I employed the help of the only person that I knew in my life that could really get this done. His name is Santa Claus. He lives in the North Pole, and I wrote him that Christmas and I said, Dear Santa, I would like this thing that I've scoured the internet for. It's called an audio interface. Apparently it lets you record both guitars and vocals, and I thought that it was really gonna help me out. It was gonna take my music to the next level once I put everything through it. So Santa, much to my delight, came through. And that Christmas morning I unboxed it, and there it was. There was an audio interface. It was a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. So I took it out of its case, and after 2 days of simply trying to figure out how it worked and what I was gonna do with it, I started to record my first couple songs. And in that recording process, which was more difficult than I ever could have imagined, I noticed one thing. My recordings weren't very good. Now, to prove my point, I have decided right now to do the bravest thing and to show you some of my early recordings, because I know you're going to be like, Mike, there's no way they were that bad. Yes, they were that bad. I apologize in advance. This is going to be really bad. It's not good. If you can't tell, I don't think they were very good. But even in that point, after only having recorded a couple pieces of music, at that time, I was still ready to call myself a producer. And I think a lot of guitar players in the modern day who just have Logic or who have bought a simple condenser microphone are ready to call themselves producers. And I'm wondering why that is. Because let's say, for example, I bought a keyboard like this one right here that you can get at sweetwater.com, link in the description. And I came home and I learned a C chord. I learned an E minor, and I learned a G. Ooh. I think if I did that, I wouldn't really be comfortable calling myself a keyboard player yet or a pianist. So why, after only making a couple songs, was I ready to call myself a producer? And I've said it a couple times in this video, but I think there's this badge of honor associated with calling yourself a producer in the modern music world. We think about artists like Taylor Swift and like Bruno Mars, and I think about conversations that I've had with friends and other musicians that always go something along the lines of, you know, blah, blah, blah doesn't write their own song, or you know, blah, blah, blah produces and mixes their own music. It's kind of like this instantly impressive thing, like, oh, they produce their own music, they must be really talented. Ooh, they don't write their own songs, they must not be really talented. I remember specifically, in accordance to Bruno Mars, that video that went around with his producer looking like death and like he hated his life, where he was showing you the making of 24 Karat Magic, where everyone was like, oh my gosh, that Bruno Mars, he's super talented. But would 24 Karat Magic be a less impressive song if Bruno Mars didn't produce it himself? And I think having producer being this coveted term also makes a lot of guitar players think that they need to instantly be good at producing. You see, what I didn't know when I was making those bad recordings is that producing is just like learning any other instrument. Most people aren't gonna pick it up and just be amazing at it. I think because I learned some of these musical concepts before, like say for example, playing a G chord on the guitar. At that point in my life, I wasn't anywhere near a great guitar player, but things like that, like basic strumming patterns at the time, I had found had come really second nature to me. And because of that, I kind of assumed that something that wasn't necessarily just a specific instrument like producing would come very second nature to me. But that's not the way it goes. It takes years and years and years to develop yourself as a producer, which is why I have so many questions around why so many guitar players and other instrumentalists can already give themselves these terms. And again, like I said before, I'm not trying to gatekeep. I'm not trying to say there's a certain amount of years it takes to be able to call yourself a guitar player. Like you need to be able to play Neon or you need to be able to play Stairway to Heaven. I am saying there's this huge misconception that I feel around producing, especially around guitar players, that you'll just get it and that it'll just happen. And we forget the work that we had to put in just to be able to play a G chord, because it was a process in learning and learning. Even if you look at my producing journey and where I was about a year later after those first recordings. It's not good. Oh gosh, the bass. Now, I still don't think that that song Lights was very good. I think it was very amateur and it needed not even just work just to be thrown down the pit, but I think it was a very big improvement from the first time I had ever put a microphone to a guitar amp. Now, was I more of a producer a year later? Yes, I was more of a producer, but was I a master at it? No. Was I a professional? No. Am I a professional now? Not yet, but it took a lot of work even in that 1 year to get to where I was. And even in looking at myself as a producer right now, that's something I just produced today, I can see the improvement. I think the specific reason why people are willing to call themselves that is because of accessibility. We're living in an age where good music gear and high quality music is more accessible than ever. Like with me and this Santa Claus guy, I was able to buy that first interface and just start making music. And there are people who make great music with really accessible gears. The first song I showed you and the last song I showed you were produced with the same gear, specifically the Focusrite Scarlett. And I know I talked a lot of this video about not gatekeeping the word producer, and am I saying that if you're not a great producer you should just focus on guitar playing? No, not at all. I think because of that accessibility that we were talking about before, it'll make you a better guitar player if you actually learn how to arrange and you actually learn how different guitar parts work with different instruments. I think the difference between the three pieces that I just showed you is not just in the quality of the instruments that I was using, but in how they work together and how they kind of blend together, not just mixing wise, but as an arrangement. And I didn't learn that by just going over the pentatonic scale, which I do every single day because I want to get faster and because that's important. But the reason why the Tim Hensons and the Corey Wongs of the world are who they are, and they're able to do these great things and make these great pieces, is not just because they know how to play really fast or really in time. It's because they know how to work within an arrangement and how to work with different instrumentalists to get the best possible quality product. Thank you so much for watching. This was a lot of fun. Drop a like if you enjoyed this. Have a great day.